Right, there we are. After some minor technical difficulties, we are finally getting into it. There we go. All right, sorry about that, guys. I'm definitely not retro. She's the one that knows everything about this. I I just try my best with getting it started. Anyway, hey there, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Vampire Preacher, and welcome to the stream. Today we're going to be doing an unboxing because it was the request of some people yesterday for the Marvel Legends Monster Venom Wave. The Monster Venom Wave came out a little bit ago. It's not the newest wave, but of the three waves that I have, the Monster Venom Wave, the Sauron Wave, and the Apocalypse Wave, it was the one that I got the most requests for. Thus, here we are. So, without further ado, let's get started, shall we? Now, we've got some figures in here that I'm really excited for, and some that I'm less so excited for. We do have 4 symbiotes for this wave. I know that symbiotes are a huge thing, especially with the Venom movie coming out later this year. Additionally, we have 2 other non-symbiote characters. I'm very much looking forward to one of those and very much disappointed in the other. Now, I have not yet opened up any of these figures, so I'm not 100% sure what they look like and how their articulation fares, but we'll see together. One moment while I get my unboxing tool. Alright, and hi Retro! We are back. Sorry about that. Had to get a tool to open up the figures. So, the first one that we're going to be reviewing today is the namesake of the line, Venom. This is a new figure for Venom with an unmasked Eddie Brock head and the tentacles around the neck. For the box, it once again has the window pane so that you can see everything inside, and a blurb on the back showing the rest of the line, as Marvel Legends do. For this particular figure, there have been... This is partially a figure review and partially a meme review for this, because there's been nothing but memes about how big Venom's head is. If you look in any forum for Marvel Legends, you'll see people making fun of the size of Eddie's head. Out of the box, we've got Eddie here. I would do it, except I don't want a copyright strike if I did this. So, let's not do that and say the words that go along with that. He comes with Monster Venom's leg, which, as we do every time we do a unboxing and a review here, we're going to save those pieces until we put the figure together, which will be the last one of the figures that we review today. Now, out of the box, Eddie feels alright. He doesn't feel great, but he feels okay. So, for what we're seeing for Eddie Brock, he is a rather large character, and again, speaking of horrible memes, the spider does not go below the waistband, so it's not ever going to be broken up by turning him. Not that you'd ever turn your figures. That being said, his waist, if you can see here, is it's very loose. It's very jangly. I'm not a big fan of that. motion for his arms, he can get them just to the shoulders, which is decent for Eddie Brock. He's not quite as flexible as Spider-Man, but he's decently so. We once again have a bicep swivel here. The double jointed elbows, as per usual. His wrist is jointed for a swivel there, and a in and out bend here, which works just fine for Venom. A personal thing for me is that both of Venom's hands are fists. While that can work, it's not necessarily perfect. Venom does swing around on on symbiotic webbing, so maybe a web slinging hand would have been nice. Additionally, a grasping hand, something like a claw coming at you, would have been great for battle scenes with Spider-Man, so he could have held up Parker by the neck. For his ab crunch, wow, that's actually some decent motion. Eddie can do crunches. And he can bend over backwards for you. I'm suitably impressed. That's far more motion than I was expecting out of the Hyperion Buck, which is what we're based on here. For his hip motion, he's got some decent amount of motion in the hips. For his knees, we once again have the double jointed knee, but because Venom is so swole, his calf and his thigh make it so that he can only go this far. That's as much movement as you're getting out of it. We do have boot swivels, unlike most of our figures that were reviewed yesterday on the other website, which has a name that is the main content of a certain drink. Not sponsored, but definitely come see me on that website. Anyway, his ankle motion, we've got a little bit of forward. His backward motion, I can already tell, is absolutely sublime. You can really get him on point, and that's perfect. And he does have rocker ankles, so you can get him into all different kinds of poses there. On the big head controversy, honestly, in pictures it looks bigger than it is. It is a little bit oversized, I'm not going to lie to you. It is a tad oversized. For his standard Eddie head. For his Venom head, I don't know, it also seems a tad oversized to me. Maybe it's the neck, I'm not 100% sure what exactly it is, but there is something about him that seems a bit oversized. Alright. So the symbiotic webbing pieces do come off, which leaves two holes in the back, one here and one here. I didn't say the website, RetroVixen. You said that website. I did not say it, because I don't want people to be striking me on here for advertising other streaming platforms. As for his neck articulation, Eddie can actually look all the way to the sky and even look down on puny Parker. I'm suitably impressed with that articulation for his neck, and actually, he doesn't seem to... For whatever reason, the head doesn't seem quite as large when you don't have this webbing on. That's a little bit unusual to me. Yes, the Skyrim quotes, they are abundant. Now, because we are reviewing the Venom figure here, I did go down into my collection and remove from storage the Absorbing Man Venom, so that we can do a side-by-side. Now, already I can say, personally, I prefer the Absorbing Man Venom. The plastic feels a little bit better quality. He doesn't have the jangly hips, even though it seems like it's the exact same buck. And I believe it to be the exact same buck. This one just feels a little bit tighter. Funny enough, the older buck for the Hyperion Wave one does still have the peg for the symbiote piece. So you can use your symbiote piece on your older Venom, and it actually looks better. That's really sad to say. Symbiote Venom, you've given me a piece to use on an older figure. And I'm realizing now there is some paint chips on his nips for the new figure. That's highly unusual, whereas the old one does not have those. Additionally, the older one has the fully closed mouth. But let's see how our new Venom head... Actually, our new Venom head works really well on our old buck. That's very unusual. And out of pure curiosity, I don't know how that works, but the old Venom body works better with the new Venom's unmasked head. I think that I'm going to be keeping this Venom just for, and I do mean just for, the accessories, the head and the symbiote piece here, because he looks fantastic on the old Venom. The newer one doesn't look quite as good. And I do like the variety of heads. Now, so that we're not saying I'm biased towards, hey there, Rhetoric, how you doing? So that we're not being biased against the new figure. Ooh, the heads don't actually swap from the old figure to the new, but the new ones do swap onto the old. That's really unusual. The older Venom figure from the Absorbing Man Wave also has the one with the tongue, which, of course, everyone knows Venom for. In my personal recommendation between the two, doing well. Great to see you, Rhetoric. And don't you worry, Rhetoric, we're going to be reviewing the new Carnage figure as well. But right now, we're actually doing a side-by-side review of the Absorbing Man Wave Venom and the new Monster Venom Wave Venom. From what we've seen, especially since the Absorbing Man Wave Venom also has those clawed hands that I was speaking of, but he also has a set of closed fists. Personally speaking, if you can find one in the wild, get the Absorbing Man Wave Venom. He is your definitive figure. If you can find the Monster Venom Wave Venom loose, but you can get the Absorbing Man Wave Venom with all the accessories, i.e. the extra tongue head, the smiling head, the 2 sets of open hands, and the 2 sets of closed hands, then get both figures, take the accessories from your Monster Venom Wave Venom, and leave the rest be. I'm sad to say the older figure is the better figure here. He doesn't make the head look quite as oversized as it does on the newer figure for the unmasked head, and even the normal head looks better with the symbiote tendrils, which he does have the space for. They obviously thought of that ahead of time. And he's got the open and the closed fists. If you can only get one Venom, get yourself the Absorbing Man Wave one. Actually, we're going to keep this Venom out, as there is a secondary purpose to having this Venom body. That jangly top is going to be the death of me. But there is a secondary purpose to having this Venom body, so we will keep that one out as we continue our review here. Up next, we have one of the new characters that has been brought out in recent time, Poison. Now, for those of you that are unfamiliar, Poison is a character. The Poison race of alien beings are actually the natural predator of the symbiotes. Thus, they have come to Earth to rid the Earth of symbiotes. So no more Venom, no more Carnage, no more Lasher, no more Scream, which we will get to in a moment. This version possessed Eddie Brock for a very brief period of time. It also possessed Peter Parker for a very brief period of time. But it is currently possessing the natural-born son of Wolverine, James Howlett Jr. Or, I'm sorry, James Howlett III. For a very unique Venom-Wolverine hybrid. As you saw before, the box has the window pane to the front. The back of it has the blurb along with the press photo for Poison. Now let's get to the actual figure himself. Poison does not come with a bunch of accessories. He comes with the Monster Venom arm, which again will be our big figure to review at the end of our review and opening here today. Additionally, he has these tendrils, which seem to be stuck in with tape. They are made of a very soft rubber from what I'm feeling, just getting my hands on them for 2 seconds. The rubber for the tendrils is very soft. It does not have posability to it, but they do look very cool. Here we have the new Poison out of the box. I do love how the tendrils look. Oh, thank you very much, Rhetoric! Poison here, as you can see, the tendrils, thank you ever so much for the follow. The tendrils that are coming out of the spider here on the chest are very soft. They're not going to be great for posability. As far as our articulation goes, for his arms, we can get them, to that, just about to that 90-degree point, although they are a little stiff. There is a little bit of bend, but that can be solved with the hot water trick or the hairdryer trick, your call. We do have, once again, bicep swivels here. And the double jointed elbows. And, that is a little unfortunate. His double jointed elbow can only go so far, once again, because he is just too swole. He's got too much going on up here to really get it to bend. Now, the detailing in the sculpt is beautiful. I do love these, if you can see them, these arm blades that we've got going on that are part of his costume. They look absolutely fantastic. For his hands, we've got one open, one closed, and if you were trying to swap them out with different hands, you're going to be having a tough time, as both sets of hands are actually sculpted in a very unique way. If you can see, might need to bring him a little bit closer here, and it's not picking up the detail. You can actually see that the nails on him are incredibly long, almost like Carnage's fingernails, much like many of the symbiotes that we see out there. So he's got the very much claw thing going on. So you're not going to really be able to swap out hands with similar looking figures. But the detailing on them is absolutely fantastic, as is the detailing on the figure. I know it's all just white, so you guys can't really see, but we can kind of see there all the mold detailing on this fresh new mold. The body is brand new here, and that's actually greatly impressive to me. They did some great work with the detailing. Everything here is sculpted, none of it is just painted. On the front, it is once again all sculpted with some silver detailing going along it for all of the sculpted pieces to really make them pop. At a close distance, it's actually much prettier than it is from a farther distance. For his neck articulation, he can look decently high to the sky and can actually look down upon his enemies as well. So that is some great posability there. His new facial structure, his new facial sculpting is beautiful. And once again, there's a bunch of detailing that actually is... It's really hard to pick up because it's all white. I'm attempting to retro. It's all very interesting detailing. I'm trying to see if it can pick that up for you. And it's still not. Because it's nothing but a white glob to the camera. The details are all very well done in here. I do give this sculpt a decent amount of credit. As for what we've got for the ab crunch.
Try to do your hand horizontally against the camera instead of vertically.
Good point, Retro. The ab crunch, we can go forward a decent ways and back an alright amount. It's not fantastic, but it's good enough. We once again have a waist swivel here for our hips. He can go a decent distance, but I wouldn't go too far. The white plastic for his hip and pelvis seems a little bit brittle. You might have the same issue that you did with the first class Iceman, where it might collapse in on itself. We once again have a thigh swivel, although this one seems to be very locked. Unusual, since it's not painted, it's just sculpted. It's just two pieces of plastic put together. We've got the double jointed knees, which, much like Venom before him, we are having a slight error with it trying to go all the way back because his calves and thighs are just too swole. We once again have boot cuts so that we can get some greater articulation from the legs. As for his foot articulation, he can actually go pretty far forward. That's the best range I've seen so far today. And it's seeming like the trend with Spider-Man characters is that they can all go on point, which is fantastic. It makes for some great dynamic posing. We once again have the rocker ankles here, so that you can get a full dynamic range of motion from the ankle to give him a more dynamic pose. Well, Poison is a relatively new character. It is a pretty decent figure here. I would give it a recommend if you are looking to bolster up the ranks of your Spider-Man characters, or if you're just looking for someone new to go up against Venom. Well, it is not the iconic look for Poison, since Poison is now been done 3 different ways in his very short run. It is a very unique look, and one that I think will go great with a display, especially if you're a big fan of symbiotes like I am. God knows I have far too many of them, and could probably make a display just based off of my symbiotes. Speaking of symbiotes, up next, we're going to do one that I'm actually very excited about. For one reason or another, someone at Marvel is apparently a big fan of the 90s, even though the Life Foundation symbiotes were rather short-lived. In this situation, we're talking about Scream. She is the second of the Life Foundation symbiotes that we've seen, after, of course, the Lasher figure that we got for the Lizard Wave. With the two of them, we've got 2 out of 5 Life Foundation symbiotes already put into figure form. If we could make a full team of anything ever Hasbro, then it would be absolutely fantastic. Let's get this guy open. Or this lady open, if you will. Once again, we've got the panel on the front so that you can see everything contained within, the blurb on the back, and of course, the press shoot picture. Now, for Scream, she's actually one of my favorites of the Life Foundation symbiotes, and probably my favorite part of the Spider-Man ride at Universal Studios Islands of Adventure, just because of her amazingly cool entrance. Once again, in the packaging, we've got not a lot as far as accessories go. We've got Scream herself, and we have the arm of Monster Venom. I am calling out Hasbro a little bit, and the other symbiotes all started during the separation anxiety arc. If you recall, it's before Lethal Protector for Venom, but the arc that came right after the incarnation of Carnage first began, these symbiotes are actually based off of Carnage's symbiote. There were 5 of them in total, with Lasher, Scream. I'm trying to remember all of them. I know Hybrid was one, but I believe he was a technical 6th member after the other 5 were killed off. Wow, I'm missing out on the other 3. And that is going to kill me for the rest of the day. Anywho, we have Scream here in hand. She looks to be a great figure, but she does suffer from some of these same problems as previous female Marvel Legends. Hasbro does need to fix this issue, at least for me, since I personally love the female figures. I think that they're awesome, and some of them are way more badass than the males that are in Marvel Comics. I know, it's shocking, but it's true. As for Scream, what can she do? Well, her hair here is definitely going to be impeding her looking up. Wow, that is all the neck motion we're getting as far as looking up and looking down. She can only do that. That is all. This glob of hair here, which is beautifully sculpted. It's beautifully done. All of the individual strands look great. But it does definitely impede on her ability to be articulated. As for her shoulder motion, we've got about the same range that we got with Eddie. A little bit better than we did with Poison, where we can get them the full 90 degrees. I will say, with her arms all the way out, she looks a little bit gangly. She almost looks like a Lady Deathstrike. Or at least the figure they did of Lady Deathstrike back in the ToyBiz days. As for the rest of her articulation, we once again have the bicep swivel. As has been the case with... That's just odd. Elbows don't work that way. I would go to a hospital. That's probably not a good thing. Because she is a female figure, they only give her the single joint for the elbow, meaning she can only go to a maximum of 90 degrees. Some go a little bit further, but she's got a little bit too much bicep there for her to go all the way past 90. She's got, once again, the swivel here at the wrist. Her wrist, as well, can go all the way back and all the way forward. Well, at least this far forward. It can make for some great posing. I believe her hands are actually remolds of the old Carnage hands, just done in yellow now, because of the long fingernails that we've got being almost identical to the Carnage figure that we got several waves ago. once again, we've got the same issue with her ab crunch in that she doesn't have one. She does have a swivel, but this is as far forward as she can go with that swivel. And that is as far back. That is all that you're getting out of her. We have Venom, who can bend over backwards for you. We've got Poison, who can go a decent amount. Venom, who can do great crunches, and we've got Scream here, who can do next to nothing. So no, she's not that flexible. She's great in the arm department, not so great in the core. She's got to work on that. As for our hip articulation, that is as far as it's going. It's sad when you can say that your Venom figure has more flexibility than your Scream figure. That might be in part because of the buck they used for her. It looks to be the older Kitty Pryde / I believe the Invisible Woman was on the same body type, where they made them very voluptuous in the back. However, it limited their hip articulation. They've changed that mold as of late to make it so that there's better hip articulation, but of course, fanboys are still crying out because they don't have that booty dough. She once again has a thigh swivel here, so that you can get a decent amount of articulation in the legs. Actually, Rhetoric, it is a fantastic figure, and as soon as the Ben Grimm figure comes out later this month, although there have been rumors of it being out already, trust me, I've been trying to find it, I will be doing a review of the entire Fantastic Four, all of which are Walgreens exclusives, making them an unofficial wave, but still a pain in the ass to get. They have not been easy to find all of the figures of the first family of Marvel. She does have the double-jointed knees, and she has the best articulation that we've seen for that thus far. She can pretty much kick her own backside. That is wonderfully done. The only thing impeding her getting all the way to her backside is her hair. She does have the calves and the thighs, which don't even get in the way as much as you would think, as the hair does. Her hair is going to be the death of me. But wow, that is some great articulation for her knee. I will give them credit for that. Now, a step back from the previous two figures, we don't have a boat swivel. Nothing. It's one cut. You guys can do this, Hasbro. I promise you, you can. It is one cut. For her feet, thankfully, she's not wearing heels. This is an amazing thing to Marvel Legends collectors, having female figures not in heels, because apparently Hasbro heard all of the complaints of all of the figures falling over in whole displays because they insist on putting every woman in high heels. For her forward motion, that's it. That's all you're getting out of that. For her backward motion, she can go on point. So, much like the other Spider-Man figures we've seen, she does have great motion for making it so that she can be sticking to a wall, for instance. She can't really be lunging, but she can be sticking to a wall or in a jump midair. We once again have the rocker ankles, although we do not have the same range of motion as we did with other figures. She can do some of the ballet retro, but not all of it. She was one of the figures I was most excited for in this wave. I'm not going to say I'm disappointed, as I did get another Life Foundation symbiote out of it. But she isn't quite what I expected her to be. I won't say that she's a disappointment for a figure, but I'm not going to say that she is my personal favorite. I'm hoping that the wave redeems itself with the two others I'm looking for, as thus far it's been hit or miss, is the best way to describe this wave of Marvel Legends at this point. Now granted, there are 6 figures in the wave, and we've only reviewed half, so we've still got more to come. Plus, of course, the big reveal at the end of the Monster Venom Build-A-Figure. Here's hoping that he's awesome. Here's hoping that Scream is not a sign of things to come with that figure. Ooh, she is even a little bit rough to try and get back into the packaging because of the lack of articulation in her arms. Yikes. That is definitely something that can be worked on in the future for upcoming female figures. Now, the next figure that we have is one that I'm a little bit salty that I got previously. I could not find my previous release of this figure. Unfortunately, I'm very sorry about that. But I'm only salty because I like this one so much more. The next figure up is the... let's call him what he is, the bastard child of Venom, Cletus Cassidy, Carnage. This Carnage is already, without even taking it out of the box, leaps and bounds better than the one they did previously, and I'll let you guys in on why once I take it out of the box. We once again have the window dressing here, the blurb on the back with a secondary piece for the unmasked head of Cletus over here. Now, people that know me know I am an absolute sucker for unmasked heads on my action figures. If I could, I would have an entire display of figures just in their normal heads. Not with masks on, different things like that, but just with the normal heads of the figures, because that's my thing. In the box, before we really get into it, Cletus is the one that is most jam-packed with accessories, and I'm kind of loving that right now. He does come with the head for Monster Venom, who's definitely coming together nicely now. As of thus far, we've unboxed both arms, a leg, and now the head. Speaking of heads, he does come with a normal Carnage head. But in the box, they actually do what I normally do when they come with extra heads. They put on the unmasked head for Cletus. He looks absolutely terrifying. That is a tremendously psychotic look on his face. Let's see if we can really get that serial killer look to really shine. There we go. That's a look that's going to haunt you in your dreams tonight. He is absolutely terrifying with that look, and I kind of love it. He does come with 2 additional hands, but the hands that he has on are the whole reason why I'm jealous that this figure came out second instead of first. If this figure came out first, I would have never bought a second Carnage figure, because, man, they stepped up their game. I do, at this time, wish that I had not purchased Carnage, but instead the Toxin figure for the previous wave. I believe it was Absorbing Man, but I might be wrong. I believe I am wrong, now that I think about it, because Absorbing Man is the one that had Venom in it. But let's get into the figure himself. Carnage. Wow, they've made improvements on this mold. They've given him the extra tendrils coming off of his arms in multiple places, which really add to the character. He also has additional tendrils on both of his legs, as you can see here. That really adds to the character of Carnage here, and it's a beautiful thing. Really and truly, it's fantastic, and I love what they did with that. The unmasked Cletus head, I absolutely adore. Cletus Cassidy, that is... whew. I'd say that's the look only a mother could love, but even his own mother doesn't love him because he is a puppy killer. Let's pop off Cletus's face because I don't want to see that in my dreams tonight. Pop on the Carnage head, and wow! Wow! That is a thing of beauty. The previous Carnage figure did not come with the accessory pieces that this one does. It just came with the hands that they still reissued to us anyway, But things like this giant sickle scythe blade here, made out of Carnage's symbiote, is glorious, along with the tremendously long nails with tendrils coming out of them that they are... That is something that could scare you in the middle of the night just because of how gorgeously done it is. I need to stop gushing about this figure and review it. It is beautiful. I'm trying not to speak too quickly here. Oh, I'm sorry, I took this off before I took him out of the package and didn't put it back on. He also does have a set of back tendrils, which just make him get that tendril look all the more. Now, these are removable, just like Venom's tendrils were, via a back peg. But the real question here is, why would you ever want to? It's Carnage. He's known for the tendrils. Oh, that is a wonderful thing. His head articulation, he can look straight up and straight down. And that's wonderful. For his arms, he's not quite getting the same motion that we even saw out of Scream and out of Venom for his arms. Now, I do know part of that is because this arm is a little bent from the packaging. He's not going to get as much upward motion. He really would have been a mold that could have benefited from butterfly joints, so that he could have gotten more of that range of motion that we know Carnage for. Carnage, we know in the comics as pretty much being murder fluid. It's what he is. He's murderous fluid. He will just go around pretty much like a living slime and then absolutely murder the ever-living bejesus out of you. He's got the bicep swivels, as we've seen, as a pretty standard feature. He does have the double-jointed elbows. And even though he is decently swole, he can do a little bit better than some of his other predecessors, though he does have a little bit too much of that elbow going on to do, or that bicep rather, going on to do so. His hands, we have a joint here that's, of course, a swivel, but we also have, for this hand at least, instead of being the standard in and out, it is an up and down joint, as we saw with Thor yesterday. For a sickle hand, that actually makes logical sense. I'm amazed, Hasbro, you did something that made logical sense for once. Congrats to you. Buy a cookie. You've made enough money off of me to buy all of the cookies. For the additional hands, they all have the in and out. This one does not have that great of a range of motion, although it does have a decent back range. If you see here, the back range is much better than our fore range. And just because of how terrifying these extra hands are, I don't know if I'm ever going to put on the original Carnage hands, just because these ones are so beautifully done. The plastic on the torso seems to be a different plastic used from the arms and even the hips and the shoulders. You can tell in the finish that it looks a little bit different. It's a little bit unusual, but I suppose it's alright. As for our articulation here, for our ab crunch, Carnage has a decent amount of crunch forward, and going back, he has a decent amount of back. It's a little bit insulting to say that Carnage is not as flexible as Venom in this wave. That being said, it is a gorgeous figure. For his hip articulation, there's so much going on here with all these tendrils, it's almost hard to see, but that's all we're getting out of his hips. We do have thigh swivels once again. We do have the double-jointed knees once again. As far as how his knees go, his calves and his thighs are a little bit too thick for him to go all the way back. He does not have the range that Scream did. He does have boot swivels, however, which is nice to see return after the previous figure. As for the articulation with his feet, that is a decent amount of forward articulation here, as you can see. For his backward articulation, wow, that is absolutely incredible. For the side to side on his feet, he does once again have the rocker ankles, and it shows. There's nothing impeding the articulation for these rocker ankles, so they are really able to go to a full range there. Meaning you can get some dynamic leg poses out of him, minus the fact that you can't get him to really scrunch down because of the thighs and calves. With everything I've said with this figure, this is going to be my definitive Carnage figure. It is absolutely gorgeous. It's got some wonderful design choices. This tendrily mess is absolutely terrifying. And the fact that they give you the face of a puppy killer, just, it's a cherry on top. It's fantastic. I cannot recommend this figure enough. If you're going to buy one figure out of the entire Monster Venom Wave, if you're not a Marvel Legends collector, but you are a fan of Carnage, as I know you are, Rhetoric, then I still recommend this figure just because of how wonderfully done it is. Especially with the upcoming Venom movie, my recommendations at this point are find yourself a Absorbing Man Venom, possibly a Monster Venom just for the additional head and tendrils, and do find, please do find yourself this Carnage. He is wonderful. He is a terrible person, but a wonderful action figure. I cannot say enough nice things about this figure just because of how much it has impressed me today. I'm without words, which, with as many of you know that know me, it is very hard to leave me speechless. This figure does just that. I'm amazed and have nothing left to say, in the words of William Shakespeare. Moving on from this figure, before I keep gushing too much over it, just because of how much I love it, we're going to go to the figure that I am already, without having opened him, the most disappointed in. That way we've got only room to go forward instead of sliding back from this next figure. The next figure we have up is from the Spider-Verse. He was originally a joke by Mad Magazine. Yet Marvel deemed it suiting to make him an actual action figure. This figure has appeared in video games. He is appearing in the Into the Spider-Verse animated movie that's coming out. And he's appeared in numerous publications, including actual Marvel comics. The figure is Spider-Ham. You heard me. Spider-Ham. This is a thing, ladies and gentlemen. This is what we're doing today. Spider-Ham, once again, has the window display here, the blurb on the back, and let's get into it. Now, I will admit, I am disappointed with this figure in terms of how I feel cheated with him. Without opening him up until this very moment, I feel like they needed to do much more for a character that has such a rich history. In the box here, we have the Monster Venom torso, backside, and forward side, which is large enough that they needed to include it in two halves. We also have the pork grind head, as seen here, which we'll get into in a moment, and, of course, Spider-Ham himself. Now, the first thing we're going to do, before we get into Spider-Ham, is we're going to assemble our torso for the Monster Venom. Because they deemed him such a big boy that they could not... Ooh, that is a hefty piece. That is a very large torso. This... Rhetoric, I know you're going to be excited for this figure when we get to that at the end, since already, my word, he is, from the two pieces I put together, he is gigantic. Like, this is... Whew, this is quite a... I think I might have just validated my purchase of this entire wave with putting together this build-to-figure. Good heavens. We will get to that momentarily. To the matter at hand, though. Spider-Ham does whatever a spider can. This is it. This is the entirety of your figure for Spider-Ham. Now, he is supposed to be diminutive compared to your normal Spider-Man. That being said, what is inexcusable to me is if you're going to make a character this small, give me the detail work that warrants it. You could have done great things in the detailing because you made such a diminutive figure. If you can look closely to the figure, he does have webbing that is sculpted into him, but none of it is painted. Which just feels lazy to me. They sculpted in the webbing on his chest, on his back, on his head, and even on his arms and boots, but they painted none of it. Absolutely none of it. His neck motion, wow, that is pathetic. This is as far back as his head can look. That's it. It's straightforward. He can give you a down, but Spider-Ham, first of all, isn't big enough to be looking down on anyone. Second of all, the figure is not a quality enough to look down on anyone. For our arm articulation, he does go slightly better than 90 degrees. He looks like Puck right now. For those of you that are familiar with Alpha Flight. He does have articulation in his shoulders for a full swivel. He has a wrist swivel, but that's as much as that does. It does not have a forward and back for the wrist, and he has only single jointed elbows for his arms. Now, I do love Spider-Ham and his rich history. I do not love the things that they did, decision-wise, with making this character. That's as high up as his arms are going to go. That's all the articulation you're getting out of him. He came with one set of hands, which, even though they are a unique mold for the entire figure is a unique mold. I will give them that. The hands just seem sloppy. They don't seem like they were well thought out. Most of this figure feels that way in my hands. He feels like he was a last-minute addition because they've shown him in things like Into the Spider-Verse's new trailer. He does have a waist swivel, which lets him go this far back and this far forward. Additionally, because it is a swivel for his waist, he can go side to side, making for some interesting posing. For his feet, we have one swivel for each boot. That's it. He does not even bend at the knees. That is all that we got with Spider-Ham. Well, the Monster Venom torso is a very large piece. We have seen large pieces like that before and not charge $20 for the figure, especially when they look like something that came out of a McDonald's Happy Meal. Now, the secondary accessory that comes with him is the pork grind head. This is from when Spider-Ham got possessed with the Venom symbiote. Now, you think that that goes on the Spider-Ham figure, but you are actually wrong. The only reason to keep around that second body for Venom is because pork grind is based on the normal Venom body. So, if you're looking to do a Spider-Ham display, you can use your Venom body that you received from this wave. If you got both this Venom and the Absorbing Man one, put Pork Grind's head on this Venom and have him go up against your Spider-Ham. It seems like a one-off joke, but it is not. They actually want you to pay for a Venom figure just to do this. It's pretty neat, and it's a cool idea. Honestly, it frees up this Venom body that I would not be using so that I can use the accessories and the extra head for the Absorbing Man Venom. That's the whole reason why we did not put away this Venom figure earlier, was so that we can let you guys see what pork grind looks like on the Venom body. Now, the next figure and the last figure in this wave, other than our Build-A-Figure, is the upcoming villain of Iron Fist Season 2. She has a rich history, normally battling against Daredevil, but this season she will be going up against Iron Fist for Season 2. Before I get into her, I will say the biggest reason that I would say to get the Spider-Ham figure is 1, for the pork grind head, and 2, for the torso of Monster Venom, because the torso piece is costing just about as much as the figure itself does. So if you can find the figure in stores, then just buy the figure, because you're going to pay 20 bucks for the torso anyway. Our final figure in this wave is Typhoid Mary. Typhoid Mary is a great character with a rich history. She has dissociative identity disorder, which can cause her to go from being just kind of evil to being full-on Bloody Mary. That is her actual name of her actual alternate ID is Bloody Mary, where she's just a murderer. It once again has the window dressing on the front, the blurb on the back. I'm very impressed that they made this character, as it did not seem like something that Hasbro would deem family-friendly enough to make. She comes with our last piece of the Monster Venom Wave in our packaging here, which is the leg, which means that our next review, and our final one of this stream, is going to be of our Monster Venom Build-A-Figure. Ooh. I think you all will enjoy that review, because I'm already enjoying looking at that figure. I was not as excited as I am right now. She comes with a katana with a flame effect, and out of the packaging, if we can get her out of the packaging, there we are. She feels like a very solid character. Again, I'm thoroughly impressed that Hasbro decided to make this character. I don't know if they were privy to the knowledge that she was going to be the upcoming villain of Iron Fist Season 2, and that's why they decided to make her, to get the hype for Iron Fist Season 2 going, or what, but this does not seem like the family-friendly type of character that they usually like to make, like Spider-Ham. Mary has a great sculpt to her. I believe she's 100% unique, or at least a good portion of her is unique, as this belt is a brand new piece, and the corset is as well. Although we will probably see the corset and the fishnet pattern reused for White Rabbit, which I know was on the fan polls as a winner from several years ago. For her shoulder articulation, even though it manipulates her leather jacket a little bit, scrunches it up, we do have the 90 degrees for the shoulders, so that is a good thing. We do not have a bicep swivel for her at all. That is unusual and unfortunate. We once again only have the single jointed elbow, which does not even go to a full 90 degrees. That's all the articulation you're getting out of this figure. That's it. Now, part of that could be because of the design of her leather jacket. Part of that could be because of the fact that I don't know why Hasbro doesn't like their female characters. For her wrists, we have inward and outward articulation, as well as a swivel there, and of course, because it is a single jointed elbow, there is a swivel in the elbow. For her accessory, she holds it very well. She's the only one so far this wave that's had an accessory to hold. The flame piece is actually a separate piece from the katana. I believe it is the same katana that was used for the Deadpool figures, which means it is wonderfully sculpted. The handle of it is sculpted beautifully, and it looks like a great katana. The flame piece goes around the katana, but I've also seen other people online doing one of these with their figure, as Mary has been known to be a bit unusual with how her powers can manifest, most especially in her Bloody Mary form. In the Typhoid Mary form, she prefers to keep the flames around the katana so that she doesn't get burned, as any logical person would. In her Bloody Mary form, she has been known to pull one of these, which is a rather unique look for the character and for the figure. It is something that I've seen other fans do so far, and it is a unique enough look that could definitely work with the figure, with one katana and one flame. As for her articulation, for her waist, we are getting nothing going forward. Nothing at all. Going back, that's it. I believe the corset actually gets in the way of this, but that's as much as you're getting out of her. Now, ooh, you're not even getting a swivel out of that, and she has no waist swivel. So that's pretty much the articulation you're getting out of this figure. For her head, she can look downward. Looking up, she's impeded quite some bit by her hair and by the leather jacket. As that's all that you're getting out of it. For her hips, that's all that you're getting. You're not getting a lot of motion out of her hips. It's really sad to say that Venom has the best hip articulation in the wave, and there are two female figures that could have better hip articulation. Just saying. She does have, once again, a thigh swivel, which will get you some dynamic motion out of her thighs. She does have the double jointed knee. I'm not sure if it's due to the gumminess of the plastic or due to range of motion limited by the design of the jeans, but she's only going that far with her knee. The parts for her boots here are actually not attached to anything. So those can be brought up as high as you like them to be, to the point where they're even above the line for the paint. It's a bit unusual that they wouldn't put them down in any way to keep them in one place. They just kind of move all around, but what have you. For her feet, she's once again not wearing heels. Thank you, Hasbro. Her articulation forward is about there. Her articulation back is able to go on point. Thank you. She once again has rocker ankles to her. Or does she? She does, but they are not an easy thing to maneuver. The rocker ankle on her does not really want to move. As far as a character that I never thought I would see in plastic, she is fantastic. As far as a Marvel Legend goes, she is not going to be one of my favorites. She will work wonderfully going up against your Iron Fist now or against your Daredevil, but she is not going to be a high recommendation from me unless you're a big fan of the character or unless you really just want the characters for Iron Fist Season 2, so someone for Iron Fist to fight against. All you need now is Davos, and you'll be in the money. For our final review, we have one last figure. It is our Build-A-Figure. Rhetoric, you might want to sit down. You do want to sit down, actually. Because, oh, baby. Our final one is the Build-A-Figure. It is the Monster Venom. Monster doesn't begin to describe the size of this figure. He is gigantic. This is your Monster Venom. This is your normal Venom. Any questions? Heavens above. This figure is colossal. It feels amazing in your hand, and I love the look on the face here. For our head articulation, he can look decently up, but I believe he's having trouble looking down. Now, this might be just the mold. No, that was just the mold getting caught. He can look you straight in the eye, and he is an impressive figure to have do that. Jeez, that is terrifying to look at and wonderful. For his shoulders, he seems to be a little bit caught up for his one arm, but with a little bit of manipulation, it goes up. We've got just about 90 degrees for his shoulders, going up and down. He does have bicep swivels. But because he is such a big guy, they only gave him single-jointed elbows, so he can only go 90 degrees there. That being said, with arms like these, you can't really go all the way. You can only go so far when your arm looks like that. He's making me a little bit jealous. He's been lifting, brah. His wrists go all the way back in this wonderful pose, as though he's going to absolutely rip your face off. But going forward, that's all the motion we're going to get out of it. As far as his waist, because he does have a ab crunch, that is as far back as he goes. But look at that forward articulation. Look at that. That's... wow. Wow, that is impressive. Oh, this is quite the figure. And honestly, the thing that's really making it for me is the tendrils here on the back and on the arms. This one you can't see quite as well because they molded it very close to the arm, but he does have a tendril on that shoulder as well, just like the one on this bicep. That is wonderful. Oh, yes, he lifts. He lifts, brah. He's the one that you look at the gym and goes, you can Now, a big complaint that people have had in the past is that the spider goes past the waist swivel, and this one does do that. That being said, I believe he's earned it, and you tell him no. Go ahead, I dare you to. For his hips, wow, he actually gets better hip articulation than Bloody Mary. He does have thigh swivels if I can get them to swivel, because his joints are rather tight. Not that I'm complaining, because, he is quite a monster to behold. He does have the double jointed knees, but I doubt we're going to get much out of him. Now, that is as far as we're going to get, because, good heavens, the calves, the thighs, even the cankle on this man. Speaking of, while other figures we've seen don't have the boot articulation, this is a much larger figure than them, and he does. He has a boot swivel. He doesn't even have boots, but he has a swivel there. For his feet, he can go this far forward, which isn't a great forward amount. Very decent knee joints considering just how swole he really is. And going back, he can't go quite on point, but he can do a decent bit there. He does amazingly for a Build-A-Figure. He's got the rocker ankles, which color me impressed. That's fantastic range of motion there. You know, for the Wave, I was almost going to not recommend it because of disappointments like Spider-Ham and the new Venom figure. But in one swift motion, I'm going to recommend this Wave, and it's because of this gigantic beauty of a beast here. He is just huge. God, I might later on today do an upload of a picture onto my Twitter, which, thank you to Retro Vixen for making me a Twitter because I don't know how to Twitter. I might do a picture of him next to a Spider-Man figure just to show how imposing this Venom really is. Because, good heavens. Additionally, I know I am a big fan here of the paint job that they did on this Venom. If you can see the difference here in paint, he is actually a metallic purple versus the flat black of Venom as he normally is. Just the color disparity actually makes me very much care for this figure. He reminds me of older versions of Venom in the comics and in the Spider-Man TV show from the 90s. That figure was that incarnation was mostly black, but they had purple highlights to him. This figure being this incredibly dark metallic purple, he almost looks like the oily texture that you expect Venom to be. I am very pleased with this Build-A-Figure. He is one of the biggest guys that we've received from Hasbro, and I am impressed with all of the work they put into him. When I heard there was a Venom Wave coming, and that the Build-A-Figure was going to also be Venom, I was understandably a bit confused and a bit disappointed. I'd have expected a different Build-A-Figure. Even the Matt Gargan Venom with the Scorpion Tail would have been a nice change-up, but this... I am a definitive fan of this Venom. He is wonderful. He feels great in hand. He's got some nice heft to him. He reminds me of some of the larger Marvel Select figures, such as the Juggernaut Marvel Select figure. He is bigger than the Juggernaut Build-A-Figure. Actually, 2 seconds, guys. We're going to prove that. I'll be right back. Alright, and we are back. So, I actually went and grabbed two of my Build-A-Figures from my storage. I might have been wrong about him being bigger than Juggernaut, but he is bigger than the other Venom Build-A-Figure we've received. Now, this is our Monster Venom, and he definitely lives up to the name. He is, indeed, a monster. This is from several waves ago, the Space Venom. As you can see, side by side, Flash is nowhere near as big as Matt is here. It is a definitive size difference, along with a definitive style difference. The Monster Venom from the Monster Venom Wave is colossal and dwarfs our Build-A-Figure. Actually, amazingly, they seem to be just about the same height, but in bulk, good heavens, this Monster Venom is double that of our Space Venom here. So that is definitely something to be impressed with. Additionally, I said he might be bigger than Juggernaut. I was incorrect. Only because the Juggernaut Build-A-Figure is massive. Comparing the two, which is another Marvel Legends Build-A-Figure, the Juggernaut is slightly larger. And it is actually much heftier in hand, but that's still... Juggernaut is frickin' huge. That still doesn't take away from the point that this Monster Venom is gigantic. He is bigger than our Space Venom that we've gotten. He's bigger than our normal Venom. And he is going to dwarf poor little Parker. This Build-A-Figure is one of the best we've received in years, with figures like the Mantis Wave and the Okoye Wave giving us smaller figures that should probably have been single package figures. This one, he would not have been a single pack. He is far too large, with just proportions that are monstrous. They have been doing Build-A-Figures. Ooh. Now, the big question here is, how long has Hasbro been doing Build-A-Figures, or how long has Marvel Legends been doing Build-A-Figures? As the original company, ToyBiz, did not have Build-A-Figures for the first several waves. I believe it was 6 or 7 waves until they finally did the Galactus Build-A-Figure, which is as big as you would expect it to be. I'm not really going to compare the old ToyBiz Marvel Legends to the new Hasbro Marvel Legends, just because they are very different in their styles. Some of the older Marvel Legends Build-A-Figures are 16 plus inches. The Galactus is, as you would expect him to be, Galactus size. He is gigantic. They made a Sentinel Build-A-Figure that is as big as you would expect a Sentinel to be. They did Mojo, who is very weird and fat and gross, but looks great, and MODOK, who is, again, a very beefy figure for the character that they did. Hasbro's been doing them since they brought back Marvel Legends, with the exception of one wave, which they called the Legendary Heroes Marvel Legends. It had characters such as Blade, it had the Punisher, it had Mystique, it had several characters, but it didn't have all of them. The very first wave they did of Hasbro Marvel Legends was a Build-A-Figure wave. It was the Annihilus wave, which was an interesting wave. They haven't done... It was not the best figures that I've seen, and a lot of the sculpt could have used some better tweaking to it, but they've come a very, very long way. In fact, hang on for one more minute, and I'll show you an example of an initial Marvel Legend Build-A-Figure. Alright, and we are once again back. Now, Rhetoric, I know that you had asked how long have they been doing Build-A-Figures. So, even though I do not have a completed Annihilus, I do have a complete version of the second Build-A-Figure Hasbro ever did, the Blob. Oh, that's just fine, Retro. The review for the Monster Venom Wave is done, but we had Rhetoric asking about some of the older Build-A-Figures. Yes, the second Build-A-Figure that Hasbro ever did was the Blob. Now, this guy is a pain to try and get a hold of. Even getting a hold of the pieces costs way more than it should. Trust me, I know, as I only had some of them before, but now, clearly I have the entirety of the Blob. You can tell in the time that they've been doing the figures, the sculpt has improved tremendously. Monster Venom is about the same size as the Blob, while looking much better and much cleaner. Additionally, he has much better articulation, and has really benefited from some of the modern machining that they're doing. I do much prefer the new style versus the old, but in the old is the only way you can get some of the unique figures like the Blob here, who we haven't seen a figure of really before or since. They made one or two in the original style with the 4-inch old figures, but that really didn't cut it for someone like the Blob, who is a massive character. And the only other time we've seen him was in the X-Men Evolution cartoon form, where he wasn't even wearing his iconic outfit, but rather wearing overalls and a t-shirt. Now, Rhetoric, since you did ask about how long have they been doing, well, I do have the very first Marvel Legends Build-A-Figure here. And I will need to back up to get all of him on screen. This is the very first Marvel Legends Build-A-Figure. It was done in the ToyBiz era. This is Galactus, the Eater of Worlds. And yes, holy crap is correct. This is what you used to get out of a 6-figure wave. This is what you currently get out of a 6-figure wave. Not saying anything, just throwing that out there. Actually, I believe Galactus was 7 figures, now that I think about it. Because he had the 2 arms, the 2 legs, the head came with Professor Charles Xavier, and 2 parts of the torso, the upper and a lower, so yes, it was a 7-figure wave, but still. I couldn't agree more, it is absolutely gorgeous, but for the modern Marvel Legends that we're getting, the Monster Venom is a fantastic figure. Now, if there's requests, I do have the majority of my Build-A-Figures here. Some of them are in storage, but if anyone would like me to, I can do reviews of the older Build-A-Figures. God knows I have too many of just Build-A-Figures from the past and currently. I don't know how many I'm missing. That should tell you everything you need to know. I don't know how many Build-A-Figures I'm missing. Not how many I have, how many I'm missing. How many I just have random parts for that aren't complete. So that should tell you pretty much everything you need to know right there. I've got a little bit of a problem. That being said, for the review for today, the Monster Venom is a fantastic figure. He's amazing. I love everything they did with him. I like him better than the Venom that was included in the wave. You know the exact figures I'm talking about then, with the, 4 or 5-inch figures from the Fleers. Oh, no, Fleers, the cards. I used to collect them as well back in the day when the figures were... But, I love the cartoons myself. I read the comics as a kid, It's funny. I actually started reading comic books with Batman comics. The very first comic I ever read was the introduction of Robin. I still have the first print of the introduction of Robin. It was given to me by my mother, who is also a huge comic book fan. She got me started down this road. It's her fault. That being said, I enjoyed DC Comics and Batman in particular for a while, but then I grew more mature and wanted more depth to my comic books. I turned 7 is what I'm saying, and I started reading Marvel instead, and I couldn't go back. Marvel Comics blew me out of the water. I've loved them ever since. I'm not against DC. With all the crap I give them, I'm not 100% against them. They can have some pretty good runs, but I'm more of a Marvel fan, especially these days, than I was back then. Now I'm good with doing reviews in the future. Again, if you want to see another unboxing, possibly next weekend, I do have 2 more waves that I'm sitting on just waiting to open up, and I'm chomping at the bit for them. The other 2 waves are the Sauron wave and the Apocalypse wave. You might remember Sauron from the 90s Marvel X-Men show on Fox Saturday morning kids cartoons. He was the pterodactyl man from the Savage Land, who can manipulate genes. He can rewrite DNA. You could cure cancer. I don't want to cure cancer. I want to turn people into dinosaurs. The Apocalypse wave? Alright. Well, unless I get a different vote here, I'm thinking Apocalypse Wave is going to be our next unboxing. But, especially since it seems like it is typhooning outside, that might have to wait until next time, as I don't want us to get cut off if the power goes out. So, for the meantime, thank you so much for joining me, guys. All in all, the Monster Venom wave was a decent wave. There were a couple of lows to it. Spider-Ham, I really feel like they could have done some more to really make the character shine. Especially since he's been around since, I believe, the 70s. Was when Mad Magazine first did their joke about Spider-Ham. And he's recently come into the fold with actual Marvel. If you played the Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions game on PS3, he was actually a part of the ending. And I'm seeing flickers of the lights, so I'm definitely going to cut it now to make sure that we don't lose power. It was a good wave. I love the new Carnage. Carnage, wow. He blew me out of the water, along with this Venom. Typhoid Mary, she's an alright figure. Poison, it's not the iconic version that we know, but it's a decent figure. Scream, she's alright, but if anything, she's just going to go with other Life Foundation symbiotes once they finish out that team. Here's hoping they finish out the team. Additionally, the new Venom, I'm sorry, he was a disappointment to me. I do like the effect piece and the new head for the old Venom, and if anything, my new Venom will become a permanent pork rind to go with the Spider-Ham, so that there's more of a reason to have Spider-Ham around. Honestly, the big one that was the big standout for me was this Venom. The Monster Venom build-to-figure was fantastic. If you don't want to get all the others and you want to just get this loose, I'm sure you can find them on eBay. Otherwise, getting the wave isn't horrendous. It is 6 figures, and they are about $20 a figure unless you can find a sale. So it would be about $120 for all 7 figures. That being said, the big standouts here are Monster Venom himself and Carnage, with some love going to the new Poison, and for me, the nostalgic love going to Scream. Otherwise, I would personally say go on eBay and get whatever figures you want to loose, as Monster Venom here is definitely worth it. Carnage is most definitely worth it. And any other figures you want, like Scream in particular, or possibly Poison, wouldn't be as much as getting the entire wave. So, that being said, I'm going to end the stream here for today, guys. thank you so much for dropping in. It's been fantastic. So far, we've got 1 vote for Apocalypse. I might open up a poll on the Twitter to find out exactly how people want it done and if they want one way or the other. But in the meantime, have a great day, guys. Keep it nerdy. Hopefully, we will be back in just a little bit, about an hour, unless it keeps on typhooning outside, for some more co-op fun with Retro Vixen, who you can follow at Retrospace Vixen on Twitter. You can follow me at Vamp Preacher on Twitter. Thank you so much, guys. Have a fantastic day. And remember, keep it nerdy.